Now, when we talk about exercise, we have to talk about the different parts of exercise, the anatomy of exercise. It's really simply composed of the duration, the intensity, the recovery, and the frequency. How many times you do the duration, intensity in a given workout, and then you can also talk about the frequency per week. And so there's different variables to exercise that create different effects. For example, duration. If you exercise at a certain constant rate of exercise over a long period of time, let's say you're doing a marathon, that tends to spike cortisol. And the third factor of recovery is very, very important too, especially if you're trying to lose weight and especially if you're trying to get rid of soreness, for example. Because if you over-exercise, you overtrain, and you don't get the recovery, that puts a tremendous amount of stress on your heart, on the muscle tissue. But today I want to talk about the importance of intensity. So number one, doing a workout that has a sufficient amount of intensity can increase your aerobic capacity. It increases more capacity to deliver oxygen to your muscles. And so more oxygen to the muscles is going to get rid of the lactic acid buildup. You'll have more endurance, and overall, you're going to repair a lot better. All right, number two, there's a greater reduction in cardiovascular disease and premature death. Now this is interesting because you would think the more intense you go, the more dangerous this exercise would be, but apparently not, especially if you keep your duration shorter. And I think the reason why, especially if you're comparing an intense workout to, let's say, a moderate amount of intensity over a sustained period of time, the sustained exercise is working against the heart because it's not following a wave-like pattern where you're doing short duration, high intensity, short duration, high intensity. The heart works on the rhythm, so any type of exercise you can mimic a rhythm is a lot healthier than a sustained type of workout. All right, number three, significant improvement in insulin sensitivity. So if you're a diabetic, if you are a pre-diabetic, if you have insulin resistance, or you're in keto and you're trying to speed up the results, which is all about improving insulin resistance and reducing insulin, the intensity of exercise is what you should focus on. All right, number four, intensity is a potent trigger to increase growth hormone. Now, what is growth hormone? It's a hormone that's made by your pituitary. It works through the liver, and it's an anabolic hormone. That means it builds things up. It builds your muscles up. It helps you make certain proteins other than muscle protein. It helps grow your bones. It helps grow your organs. And as you get older, it starts going down. So after the age of 50, it's very important to do some form of exercise that involves intensity with a lot of recovery. Also, growth hormone is all about calcium retention in the bone, fat burning, it's anti-aging, it helps your immune system, and it helps you convert T4 to T3, the active form of the thyroid hormone. Interesting. So, intensity is a potent trigger to growth hormone. You also have sleep, delta wave sleep. That's when you trigger the majority of growth hormone. Also, having low blood glucose can help stimulate growth hormone. That's keto, right? Low carb. Vitamin B3, niacin can help stimulate growth hormone. Fasting is a potent trigger of growth hormone. Keeping your stress low will also help you enhance growth hormone because as soon as you increase cortisol from stress, you diminish your growth hormone. And of course, the last one, which I already mentioned, the intensity of exercise is a potent trigger for growth hormone.
You know, the big problem with growth hormone is that it decreases with age. So if you're noticing various things with your joints, with your muscles, it could be the decline in growth hormone. But growth hormone is involved in fat burning. It's involved in building up collagen and cartilage and muscle. And it also helps your endurance when you exercise. So it's involved in performance. It also helps you recover if you have trauma, like whether from an injury, surgery, or even a stroke. And it's also involved in the cognitive function of your brain. So if you're low in growth hormone, you may find that that can affect your memory, your focus, and your concentration. Also, if you are a young person and you don't have enough growth hormone, it can actually make you a bit shorter than you should. Now, I'm definitely not going to recommend you take growth hormone. It's probably a big problem in sports, but you don't need to do that. Okay, there are natural things that you can do to boost growth hormone to counter this aging process. It all starts with the hypothalamus. Okay, so you got this hypothalamus up in the brain. that sends a signal down and tells the pituitary to release growth hormone. So the growth hormone is created by the pituitary, but there's another hormone up here that tells the pituitary to create growth hormone. And then growth hormone goes right to your liver, and it works through another hormone called IGF number 1, insulin-like growth factor number 1. So in other words, IGF number 1 does the work of growth hormone. So I just want to talk about what will stimulate or boost growth hormone, and then on the flip side, what will inhibit or suppress growth hormone. Well, guess what? In the deep part of your sleep, when you hit the delta wave, that's when you have a major release of growth hormone. So, of course, if you're not sleeping, you're not going to have nearly as much growth hormone. So sleep is a very potent way to keep the growth hormone doing its job. Number 2, intense exercise, okay? Not mild exercise, but intense exercise. The more intense, the more growth hormone stimulation. So you have the potential to increase your growth hormone by up to 1,000% if you do intense exercise. And I think out of all the exercises, sprinting is at the top of the list, but there's a lot of other ones that you could do to increase your pulse rate and use your whole body to really activate this intensity that you need to do. Just kind of walking on the treadmill is not going to do much to growth hormones. You're going to have to really use a lot of effort, okay? Intense effort. But guess what? If you overtrain and you don't get enough sleep, then it's probably not going to work. So we want to do this intense exercise without overtraining. This is why we want to do high intensity interval training, okay? Short duration, lots of rest. Low blood sugars are another powerful way to stimulate growth hormone, right? So guess what? That's on the keto plan. That's on a low carb diet. So unfortunately, diabetics who have high amounts of sugar in their blood, because they're not told about this dietary sugar and carbohydrate connection, unfortunately, it's all about just managing your blood sugars. They usually have very low growth hormone levels. So we want to keep the blood sugars low to trigger growth hormone. Number 4, amino acids, so protein. So you need protein to stimulate growth hormone. So if you're not getting enough protein, guess what? You're not going to have enough growth hormone. There are several amino acids that will trigger growth hormone, but the big one is arginine. In one study, they found that you have to take between 5 and 9 grams of it to increase growth hormone by 100%, okay? Now, I'm not recommending that you go out and get arginine. I don't think you're going to need to do it. I just wanted to bring it up as a potential thing to increase your growth hormone. Sometimes people are concerned about taking protein, especially branch amino acids when they're fasting, and having that increase their blood glucose levels. And that can do it, but apparently arginine won't increase your blood sugar level. So that's interesting, good to know. Also, there is a very unique amino acid blend that I recommend for certain people that need to maintain their muscle mass during fasting that doesn't have the same effect of other proteins of turning into sugar. It's like, I think 99.8% of it turns into muscle tissue. So you don't have that stimulation of glucose, which is good. So I will put that link down below if you fit into that category. But typically when you eat protein, that's going to turn into glucose, that's going to increase insulin, and that's going to knock you out of the benefits of fasting. But the point is that you need sufficient amino acids if you want to increase growth hormone. Number 5, fasting. Fasting has the largest influence over growth hormone, okay? You can potentially increase growth hormone by up to 2,000% if you're a male. If you're female, you can increase it by 1,300%. So this is really, really powerful. So I'm definitely recommending sleeping more, sleeping deeply, adding fasting, okay, doing keto and intense exercise. Those are the key factors here. But then you also have niacin, which is vitamin B3 that has the potential to increase growth hormone. Not by a lot, but it can definitely boost it. Then we have vitamin D, okay, that you can get from the sun. No cost to that, and that can increase growth hormone. Let's talk about what can inhibit growth hormone. You got stress and cortisol, right? Which is going to affect your sleep. The more cortisol that you're exposed to, let's say from a medication, you're on prednisone, for example, the more stress you have, the less growth hormone you're going to have. So if your diet is high carbohydrate, you're not going to have nearly the amount of growth hormone that you really need. Also goes along with this hyperinsulinemia. Okay, so of course, if you're eating sugar, you're going to have high insulin, but high insulin also will knock down growth hormone, especially if it's sustained, or chronic elevation insulin, where you see the great majority of the population, and also prediabetes, and also the first part of diabetes where your body's compensating, but eventually the pancreas runs out of insulin, and then now the blood sugars go really, really high. So then, of course, the doctor might even give you more insulin to regulate your blood sugars. All right, next one, obesity. So the bigger you are, fat-wise, the less growth hormone you're going to have. Why? Probably because of this right here, hyperinsulinemia. All right, next one is low thyroid. If your thyroid is not working correctly, you're not going to be able to nearly produce enough growth hormone. Now, since growth hormone works through the liver, we need a healthy liver for that to work. So the more damage you have in your liver, the less growth hormone you're going to have. And I'm talking about a fatty liver, I'm talking about an inflamed liver, and also cirrhosis of the liver. Alcohol has a pretty potent inhibitory or suppressive effect over growth hormone, okay? And of course, age. As you age, you have less growth hormone. So we're really trying to do all these things to compensate for this darn aging thing that we're forced to deal with. So there you have it, kind of growth hormone in a nutshell. And I think at this point, it'd be very, very smart to get a little more information about the main organ that you have growth hormone connecting to. So check out this video on the liver.